The council chamber of the Galactic Union floated in the void between stars, a massive station built by the architects 3,000 years ago. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 47 species gathered in their designated zones, each environment tailored to their biological needs. The Kaerthak breathed methane in their sealed pods. The Luminari floated in fields of pure energy. The insectoid Vextal chittered in their hive sections. Ambassador Torvan of the Hegemon Empire stood at the central podium, his four arms spread wide in a gesture of authority. His species had ruled the Galactic East for 800 years, and his voice carried the weight of countless conquered worlds. "The matter is simple," Torvan announced, his translator broadcasting to all species present. "A new species has been discovered in Sector 774. They call themselves humans. They are primitive, violent, dangerous. They have developed nuclear weapons before achieving interstellar travel. They war among themselves constantly. They poison their own planet." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Luminari pulsed with concern. The Vextal clicked their mandibles in agreement. "What do you propose?" asked Elder Shermora of the Wise Ones, an ancient species known for their patience and philosophy. "Quarantine," Torvan said firmly. "A containment field around their star system. Let them destroy themselves as such species always do. If they survive, we reassess in 1,000 years. If they attempt to leave their system before then, we eliminate them." The vote was swift. 39 species voted for quarantine. 6 abstained. Only 2 voted against. The humans would be caged. Far away, on a blue planet called Earth, nobody knew their fate had just been decided. Commander Sarah Chin stood in the command center of humanity's first hope, Earth's first true deep space vessel. It wasn't pretty, a patchwork of international cooperation, built in orbit over 20 years with parts from 50 nations. But it worked. And today, it would make humanity's first jump beyond the solar system. "All systems green," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the engineering station. "Jump drive charging. Destination, Proxima Centauri. 4.2 light-years." Sarah felt her heart pound. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. They'd found the jump drive technology in an abandoned probe near Jupiter's orbit 10 years ago. It took Earth's brightest minds a decade to reverse engineer it, to understand the mathematics of folding space itself. "Commence jump sequence," Sarah ordered. The ship hummed. Reality bent. Stars streaked. Then everything went wrong. Alarms shrieked. The ship jolted violently, throwing crew members against their restraints. Through the viewport, Sarah saw something impossible. A massive wall of energy shimmering with alien technology materializing directly in their path. "Emergency stop," she shouted. "Full reverse." The jump drive screamed as it fought to abort the transition. The ship shuddered, caught between dimensions held by the alien barrier. For 3 terrible seconds they hung in the space between spaces. Then they crashed back into normal reality, tumbling, systems failing. "Damage report." Sarah gasped, her vision swimming. "Hull intact, but barely," Marcus reported. "Jump drive is fried. Life support at 60%. And Commander, we're not alone." The view screen flickered to life. Surrounding their crippled ship were 12 alien vessels, each one the size of a city. Their hulls gleamed with weapons that human science couldn't name. A transmission crackled through their communications array. The voice was translated, cold and mechanical. "Attention human vessel. You have violated the quarantine zone established by Galactic Union decree. Your species is forbidden from leaving your home system. Your ship will be escorted back to Earth. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. You have 60 seconds to acknowledge compliance." Sarah's crew looked to her, fear in their eyes. They were light years from home, surrounded by technology they couldn't hope to match. Every tactical system showed the same conclusion: they couldn't win. They couldn't even fight. But Sarah Chin hadn't been chosen to command humanity's first starship because she gave up easily. "Open a channel," she said quietly. "Channel open, Commander." Sarah straightened in her chair, meeting the cold alien gaze through the view screen. When she spoke, her voice was steady, carrying the weight of 7 billion humans who dreamed of the stars. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Sarah Chin of Earth. We received no notification of any quarantine. We were not consulted. We did not agree. You have caged us without trial, without negotiation, without even the courtesy of introduction. So here is our response: no. We do not acknowledge your authority. We do not accept your decree. And we will not go quietly into the dark." The transmission cut. In the Hegemon flagship, Torvan's eyes widened in disbelief. The humans had just declared war on the galaxy. The hegemon warfleet commander, Zeldar, watched the human ship through his tactical display with something close to amusement. 40 years he'd served in the hegemon military. He'd seen 100 species bow before their might. These humans would be no different. How long before they realized their position? Asked his second officer. Not long, Zeldar replied. Scan their vessel. I want to know what we're dealing with. The results appeared on his screen moments later. His amusement faded. The human ship was primitive, yes. But it was also something else, something he'd never seen before. Their hull was reinforced with layers of different materials, each one designed to handle a specific type of damage. Their power systems were redundant, backed up by backups. Their life support could function on components from 6 different manufacturers. It was ugly, inefficient, completely inelegant. But it was also incredibly difficult to kill. Commander, his tactical officer reported, the human ship is not retreating. They're rotating to face us. Their weapons are powering up. Zeldar leaned forward. What weapons? Our scans showed only primitive kinetic systems. Missiles, sir. Nuclear warheads. Chemical rockets. They're targeting our lead cruiser. For a moment, Zeldar considered laughing. Nuclear weapons against shields that could withstand stellar radiation? It was absurd. Let them fire, he said. Perhaps witnessing their own futility will convince them. Aboard the First Hope, Sarah watched as their 6 remaining missiles launched. They weren't much repurposed ICBMs, really, with warheads that Earth's nations had once pointed at each other. Against alien shields they would do nothing. That was fine. Sarah didn't need them to do damage. She needed them to do something else. Marcus, she said calmly, execute Protocol Lighthouse. Her engineer's hands flew across his console. Executing now. The missiles struck the alien shields and detonated. The nuclear fireballs bloomed in silence, their light washing over the alien fleet. To the aliens it was nothing, absorbed by their shields, dissipated harmlessly. But for exactly 3 seconds, those detonations created the brightest points of light in the local space. And for exactly 3 seconds, every sensor in the alien fleet was momentarily dazzled, automatically adjusting to filter out the intense radiation. In those 3 seconds, the First Hope released its entire database as a tightly focused laser transmission, pointed back toward Earth. Everything they'd learned. The alien ships. Their formation patterns. Their technology. The quarantine barrier's location and energy signature. All of it compressed, encoded, and sent home at light speed. Transmission complete, Marcus reported. Earth will have it in 4 years. Good, Sarah said. Now prepare to surrender. Zeldar received the human surrender moments later. He ordered them brought aboard his flagship for processing. Standard procedure: verify their biology, assess their threat level, return them to their cage, and activate the automated defense platforms around their system. When Sarah Chin and her crew materialized in his ship's transport bay, Zeldar saw them clearly for the first time. They were small, fragile-looking creatures. They wore primitive spacesuits that looked like they'd been stitched together from spare parts. They carried no visible weapons. I am Fleet Commander Zeldar of the Hegemon Empire, he announced. You will be returned to your planet and your vessel destroyed. You are fortunate we do not execute you for your violation. Sarah removed her helmet. She met his four-eyed gaze without flinching. You've made a mistake, she said quietly. What mistake? You've shown us that we're not alone. You've shown us that there are civilizations out here. You've shown us your ships, your technology, your formations. She smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Zeldar's skin prickle. And you've shown us that you're afraid of us. Afraid? Of you. Zeldar's laughter echoed through the bay. Human, you pilot a ship that barely functions. Your weapons can't penetrate our shields. Your entire planet couldn't challenge a single hegemon cruiser. Why would we fear you? Because, Sarah said, you built a cage around our entire star system before we even knew you existed. Species don't cage things they don't fear. They only cage things that might bite. The chamber fell silent. Zeldar stared at her. In 40 years of service, he'd never heard a primitive species speak with such certainty. It was unsettling. Take them to the transport bay, he ordered. Send them home. As the humans were led away, Zeldar tried to shake off his discomfort. They were nothing. Primitives. In 1,000 years, if they survived, perhaps they'd be ready to join the galactic community. He didn't know that Sarah's smile remained all the way back to Earth. She didn't know that her transmission would reach Earth 4 years later and change everything. Neither of them knew that this moment, this first encounter, had started a countdown. The galaxy had 1,000 years of peace remaining. Humanity would need far less. 4 years later, Earth received the message. Dr. James Rodriguez stood in the Global Defense Initiative's main command center, watching the data stream across holographic displays. Around him, representatives from every nation on Earth studied the information Sarah Chen had sent back from humanity's first, and nearly last, journey to the stars. "This changes everything," breathed Ambassador Lu Wei, Earth's representative to the newly formed United Earth Council. "They caged us. Without warning, without contact, without even telling us why." "The data is clear," James said, highlighting sections of the transmission. "The quarantine barrier is maintained by 12 satellites positioned around our solar system's edge. They're autonomous, self-repairing, and programmed to destroy anything that tries to leave." Commander Chen's team analyzed their energy signatures before surrender. "Can we break through?" asked General Okonkwo, head of Earth's military forces. James pulled up a schematic. "Not with current technology. The barrier's energy output exceeds our total planetary power generation by a factor of 10,000. We'd need to..." He paused, recalculating. "We'd need to advance our technology by at least 2 centuries. Then we're trapped," Lu Wei said flatly. "No," James replied. "We're motivated." Over the next decade, Earth transformed. Nations that had spent centuries fighting each other now pooled their resources toward a single goal: freedom. Every research facility, every university, every laboratory focused on the problem of the cage. But it wasn't just about breaking out. It was about what they'd do once they were free. The Galactic Union had made humanity's choice for them. They'd been judged without trial, imprisoned without voice, declared too dangerous to join the community of stars. The message was clear: humanity was to be contained, controlled, or eliminated. Humanity's response was equally clear: they would accept none of those options. Dr. Yuki Tanaka made the first breakthrough in the quantum research facility beneath Tokyo. She discovered that the alien barrier technology used a specific frequency to maintain its structural integrity. Match that frequency, disrupt it at the right moment, and a hole might open. A small hole. A brief hole. But a hole nonetheless. Commander Chin, promoted to admiral and now head of Earth's first fleet, studied Yuki's findings with fierce concentration. She'd spent a decade building humanity's response to their cage. 20 ships now orbited Earth, each one incorporating lessons learned from that first disastrous jump. They were still ugly. Still patchwork. Still built with redundant systems and backup plans for the backup plans. But they were also ready. "How long will the hole stay open?" Sarah asked. 3 minutes, Yuki replied. "Maybe 4. The barrier satellites will detect the disruption and compensate. We'll need to send everything through at once. And after we're through, they'll know. The Galactic Union, the hegemon, everyone. They'll know we escaped." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then we'd better make those first minutes count." The plan was audacious. Some called it insane. But humanity had spent 10 years caged, 10 years knowing they were prisoners in their own system, 10 years planning their response. They would break free. They would show the galaxy that humanity could not be contained. And they would make sure the galaxy remembered that lesson. 3 months later, at exactly 3 o'clock Universal Time, every quantum disruptor on Earth fired simultaneously. The energy beam lanced out toward the edge of the solar system, targeted at a single point in the barrier. For 2 seconds nothing happened. Then space itself began to tear. "Hole is forming," Yuki shouted from mission control. "Diameter, 200 meters. 300. 500. It's holding. All ships, this is Admiral Chen," Sarah broadcast from the bridge of the UES Indomitable. "Execute Operation Breakthrough. Jump on my mark. 3, 1, jump." 20 ships vanished from Earth orbit simultaneously. They emerged beyond the barrier into open space, into freedom. Alarms immediately shrieked in the Galactic Union Council chamber, 300 light-years away. The impossible had happened. The humans had escaped their cage. Ambassador Torvan received the news with shock that quickly turned to rage. How? Our barrier technology is foolproof. They matched the frequency," his science officer reported, voice trembling. "They analyzed it during their first attempt, then spent a decade learning how to exploit it." A decade. Torvan's forearms trembled with fury. "We gave them a decade to study our technology? We didn't think." "No, we didn't think." Torvan slammed his primary appendage against the console. "We assumed they were primitive. We assumed they couldn't adapt. We assumed they would accept their cage. He straightened, making a decision. Alert the hegemon fleet. The humans must be recaptured or eliminated. They cannot be allowed to spread through the galaxy. Sir, the Council hasn't authorized military action. The Council established the quarantine. The humans violated it. We are simply enforcing galactic law. Torvan's eyes gleamed with cold certainty. Send the fleet. Show them what happens when primitives challenge the established order. In space beyond Earth's former cage, Sarah Chin stood on her bridge looking at the stars. For the first time in human history, they were truly free to explore them. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple fleets converging on our position. They're not bothering to hide themselves. Sarah smiled grimly. Of course they're not. They're making a statement. They're showing us that we can't win. Can we? No, Sarah admitted. Not in a straight fight. So we won't fight straight. She turned to her crew. Send the signal. Execute Protocol Swarm. Across human space the real plan began. The hegemon war fleet numbered 200 ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Fleet Admiral Karthok commanded from his dreadnought, the Pride of Dominion, a vessel so large it had its own gravitational field. Around him, his fleet moved in perfect formation, a display of power meant to awe and intimidate. They'd hunted down rebellious species before. It always ended the same way: overwhelming force, total surrender, and the reminder that the Galactic Union maintained order through strength. Human vessels detected, his sensor officer reported. Distance, 3 light minutes. They're not running, Admiral. They're holding position. Karthok studied the tactical display. 20 human ships, arranged in a loose formation around a small moon. They looked pitiful compared to his fleet, tiny, irregular, clearly inferior in every way. They're waiting for us, he said, suspicion creeping into his voice. Why would they wait? Perhaps they recognize the futility of flight? Suggested his tactical officer. Perhaps. But Karthok had survived 300 years by never assuming an enemy was as stupid as they appeared. Full scan. I want to know what we're flying into. The scans revealed nothing unusual. The moon was barren, no atmosphere, no strategic value. The human ships showed power signatures consistent with their primitive technology. No hidden weapons, no trap. Move in, Karthok ordered. Combat spread. All shields maximum. Weapons hot. The hegemon fleet advanced. The human ships didn't retreat. They didn't fire. They simply sat there waiting. Karthok's unease grew. Then, when his fleet was 2 light minutes from the human position, the humans did something unexpected. They jumped away. All 20 ships vanished simultaneously, leaving empty space where they'd been. Where did they go? Karthok demanded. Jump signatures detected across the sector. They've split up, 4 ships to each of 5 different systems. All of them are populated Galactic Union worlds. Karthok felt ice in his blood. They're not fighting us. They're forcing us to chase them into civilian space. He understood immediately. The humans couldn't win a battle, so they'd changed the rules. They'd scattered, making his massive fleet useless. To catch them, he'd have to split his forces, send smaller groups after each human contingent. And wherever his ships went, the humans would lead them through inhabited systems, making his weapons a threat to civilian populations. It was brilliant, infuriating, and completely against every rule of civilized warfare. Sir, orders? His tactical officer asked. Karthok made his decision. Split the fleet. 40 ships to each target. Run them down. Capture or destroy them, but do it quickly and cleanly. I want no civilian casualties. The humans are trying to make us look like the monsters. The hegemon fleet divided and jumped, pursuing their prey across a dozen star systems. Aboard the UES Indomitable, Sarah watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The hegemon had taken the bait. All ships status? She asked. Reports came in from her captains. Each of the 4 ship groups had jumped to their assigned systems and were being pursued by superior hegemon forces. Phase 1 complete, Sarah said. Commence Phase 2. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for generations. The human ships didn't engage the hegemon vessels. They ran, but not randomly. Each group led their pursuers on a specific path, through asteroid fields, past gas giants, around neutron stars. They used every gravitational well, every debris field, every natural obstacle to slow their hunters. The hegemon ships, built for overwhelming power, struggled with the chase. Their massive vessels couldn't maneuver through tight spaces. Their shields, designed to stop missiles and energy weapons, did nothing against collision with natural objects. The humans, with their smaller ships and redundant systems, danced through obstacles that forced the hegemon to slow or risk damage. Hours became days. Days became weeks. The hegemon fleet found themselves scattered across 12 sectors, chasing ghosts, burning fuel and achieving nothing. Then the humans struck. The UES Defiant, commanded by Captain Marcus Webb, Sarah's former engineer, led 40 hegemon ships into the Kraxta system. It was a trade hub filled with civilian vessels from a dozen species. The hegemon ships couldn't fire without risking civilian casualties. Marcus led them on a chase through the merchant routes, past passenger liners, through the planet's orbital traffic lanes. The hegemon ships fell further and further behind, hamstrung by their own rules of engagement. Then Marcus did something the hegemon hadn't anticipated. He turned and broadcast his message on all civilian channels, in every major galactic language. Attention all vessels. This is Captain Marcus Webb of Earth. We are currently being hunted by a hegemon war fleet for the crime of leaving our home system. We did not attack them. We did not threaten them. We simply left the cage they built around our sun without our knowledge or consent. The Galactic Union has declared that humanity is too dangerous to be free. We ask you, who is the real danger here? The species trying to explore the galaxy, or the empire that cages entire civilizations in secret? The message spread like wildfire. Within hours, it reached every corner of the Galactic Union. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly knew their story. The Council's secret quarantine was secret no longer. Ambassador Torvan watched the political firestorm erupt with horror. 17 species were demanding explanations. The Luminari had called for an emergency council session. Even the wise ones who rarely intervened in galactic politics were asking difficult questions. The humans, he whispered. They weren't trying to escape. They were trying to expose us. His aide nodded grimly. It's working, Ambassador. Public opinion is shifting. Some species are calling the quarantine a violation of sovereignty. Others are defending it, but the debate is everywhere. The humans have weaponized information. Torvan slammed his appendage down. Where is Karthok's fleet? Still chasing the humans. They report the humans are staying just ahead, leading them through populated systems, making sure everyone sees the massive hegemon military response to 20 small ships that haven't fired a single shot. Tell Karthok to break off the pursuit. Sir? Break off. The humans have already won this engagement. Every moment our fleet chases them, we look worse. Recall them immediately. But it was too late. The damage was done. The galaxy had seen the mighty hegemon empire mobilize 200 warships to hunt down 20 human vessels. And everyone was asking the same question. Why? The emergency session of the Galactic Union Council convened 3 weeks after the human breakout. Ambassador Torvan stood before the assembled species, his 4 arms clasped in the traditional gesture of defense. Around him, representatives from 47 civilizations watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. Elder Shermora of the Wise One spoke first, her ancient voice carrying across the chamber. Ambassador Torvan, you placed a quarantine around the human system without full council approval. You claimed it was temporary, a safety measure. Yet we now learn it was meant to last 1,000 years. Explain yourself. Torvan straightened. Elder, the humans are dangerous. Our initial surveys showed a species prone to violence, capable of destroying their own planet, and developing weapons of mass destruction before achieving interstellar capability. The quarantine was for everyone's safety, including their own. Yet they escaped, noted Zixtal, representative of the Vextal hive. Using technology they analyzed during a single encounter. This suggests considerable intelligence, not the primitive nature you described. Intelligence makes them more dangerous, not less, Torvan countered. They are unpredictable. They don't follow the normal paths of development. They make weapons from their defensive tools and turn information into warfare. They led a hegemon fleet through civilian space, weaponizing our own rules of engagement against us. Perhaps, said a new voice, that is because you gave them no choice. The chamber fell silent. The speaker was Ambassador Lyra of the Luminari, beings of pure energy who rarely involve themselves in physical conflicts. When they spoke, others listened. The humans committed no crime before you caged them, Lyra continued, her light pulsing with measured thought. They had not attacked any species. They had not expanded beyond their system. Their only transgression was developing technology you deemed dangerous. But by that standard, most species in this chamber would have been quarantined at some point in their history. The Luminari themselves developed stellar manipulation technology, added Elder Shermora. The Vextal created biological weapons. The Hegemon built their empire through conquest. Every species here has a violent past. Yet you did not cage us. Torvan felt the chamber turning against him. Those species developed under guidance, with mentors to help them mature. The humans had no such advantage. They were isolated, left to their own violent tendencies. Because you isolated them, Lyra said quietly. You discovered a new species and your first action was imprisonment. Not contact. Not diplomacy. Not an offer of guidance. You caged them and hoped they would destroy themselves. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several species exchanged glances. Torvan realized he was losing the debate. I propose, said Shermora, that we invite the humans to address this council. Let them speak for themselves. Impossible, Torvan said immediately. We don't even know where they are. Our fleet lost them weeks ago. That won't be necessary, said a new voice. Every head turned. The chamber's main view screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human female. She wore a military uniform and behind her, the bridge of a human vessel was visible. I am Admiral Sarah Chin, commander of the United Earth Space Force. We've been listening to your debate through one of our scout ships, which has been observing this station for the past 2 days. Elder Shermora, we accept your invitation to speak. Torvan's blood ran cold. The humans had been watching the council? Oh, their stealth technology shouldn't be. But of course, the humans didn't play by the rules of conventional warfare. They'd probably hidden their scout ship inside a piece of space debris or used a passive listening system that his security teams hadn't thought to scan for. Admiral Chin, Shermora said, her tone carefully neutral, you are accused of violating galactic law by breaking the quarantine placed around your system. How do you answer this charge? Sarah's face remained calm. Elder, I answer it with a question. Whose law? We were never informed of this law. We were never given a chance to follow it. We were never consulted, never heard, never offered the chance to prove ourselves worthy of freedom. You discovered our species and immediately imprisoned us. So I ask again, whose law did we violate? One we were never told existed. The quarantine was for your own protection, Torvan interjected. And for the safety of the galaxy. Protection. Sarah's voice hardened. Ambassador, let me tell you what your protection cost us. When we discovered we were caged, it shattered a fundamental dream of our species. For thousands of years, we've looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone. We dreamed of meeting other civilizations, of learning from them, of joining a galactic community. Your cage destroyed that dream. It told us we were prisoners, not explorers. Criminals, not neighbors. She paused, letting her words sink in. But it also did something else. It united us. For the first time in our history, every human nation, every human culture, every human being shared a single goal: freedom. You gave us a common enemy, Ambassador. You gave us a reason to push beyond our limitations. In 10 years we advanced our technology by a century. Not because we wanted to conquer. Not because we wanted to destroy. Because we refused to accept that someone else had the right to cage us. And now, asked Lyra, what do humans want? Sarah met the camera directly, as if speaking to each representative personally. We want what every species in this chamber has: the right to exist freely. The right to explore the galaxy. The right to make our own mistakes and learn from them. The right to be judged by our actions, not by assumptions about what we might do. And if we refuse? Torvan asked. Sarah's smile was cold. Then you'll spend the rest of your existence trying to catch us. We're faster than you thought, smarter than you assumed, and more adaptable than you imagined. You built a cage around one star system. The galaxy has 400 billion stars. How many cages can you build, Ambassador? How many species will you imprison before you realize you're not protecting the galaxy? You're controlling it. The chamber erupted in debate. The vote took 3 days. When it concluded, the Galactic Union was fractured. 24 species voted to grant humanity provisional membership, pending a probationary period. 19 voted to maintain the quarantine. 4 abstained. The Hegemon Empire, facing the loss of control, made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. They declared war on humanity. This is not a council matter anymore, announced Supreme Commander Vexer, leader of the Hegemon military forces. The humans have violated our space, disrupted our operations, and turned galactic opinion against us. They are a threat to our security and our authority. We will eliminate that threat. Ambassador Torvan tried to protest. The council hasn't authorized. The council is paralyzed by debate. Vexor cut him off. We are not. The hegemon has the right to defend its territory. The humans entered our space. They led our fleets on chases through our allied systems. That is an act of war and we will respond accordingly. The hegemon mobilized its full military might. 500 warships. 10,000 support vessels. An armada that had conquered 40 systems over 800 years. Their target, Earth. Admiral Sarah Chin received the intelligence 4 days before the hegemon fleet would arrive. She stood in the command center of the newly constructed Earth Defense Station, looking at tactical projections that showed the overwhelming force coming to destroy her homeworld. We can't win this, General Okonkwo said flatly. Even with the 20 ships we've built, even with the orbital defense platforms, even with every weapon we've developed, we can't stop 500 hegemon warships. No, Sarah agreed. We can't. Then what do we do? Sarah pulled up a map of the galaxy. We do what we've always done. We change the rules. Operation Exodus launched 48 hours later. Every available human ship, from military vessels to repurposed civilian craft, began evacuating Earth's population. Not everyone, that would be impossible. But the ships carried genetic samples, cultural databases, and 2 million volunteers who would scatter across the galaxy. If Earth falls, Sarah explained in her final broadcast to the planet, humanity continues. We've hidden colonies in 15 systems, each one prepared to survive independently. The hegemon can destroy our homeworld but they cannot destroy our species. We've learned how to survive. And more importantly, we've learned how to make sure they pay for every life they take. When the hegemon fleet arrived at Earth, they found the planet's defenses waiting. The battle was brutal and one-sided. Human railguns and missiles proved ineffective against hegemon shields. The orbital platforms fell one by one. But the humans didn't surrender. They fought for every kilometer, every station, every ship. And they made sure the entire galaxy was watching. Sarah had open communication channels to every major galactic news network. The battle for Earth was broadcast live across 200 species homeworlds. Billions of viewers watched as the massive hegemon fleet systematically destroyed the desperate human defenses. They watched as the human ships, outmatched and dying, continued to transmit messages. This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Defiant. Hull breach on 3 decks. Life support failing. To whoever's watching this, remember that Earth fought. Remember that we chose freedom over submission. Remember? The transmission cut off as the ship exploded. US Indomitable taking fire from all sides. Admiral Chin is down. Ship is breaking apart. Tell our families we. Another transmission ended. But the messages kept coming. Every dying ship. Every falling station. Every human soldier knowing they were about to die, making sure the galaxy heard their final words. The hegemon had wanted to make an example of humanity. They succeeded, but not in the way they'd intended. The galaxy watched in horror as 500 warships obliterated a single planet's defenses. They watched the overwhelming use of force against a species that had committed no aggressive act. They watched as the hegemon proved the humans' point better than any argument could have. By the time the hegemon fleet entered Earth's orbit, 30 species had condemned the attack. By the time they began orbital bombardment, 50 species were calling for military intervention. But it was the Luminari who acted first. Ambassador Lyra appeared before the Galactic Council, her energy form pulsing with an emotion her species rarely showed, anger. The hegemon has gone too far, she declared. They claim to protect galactic order through strength, but this is not strength. This is butchery. The humans were correct. We have not been protecting the galaxy. We have been controlling it, deciding which species deserves freedom based on whether they threaten our power. She turned to face the hegemon representative directly. The Luminari withdraw our support from the hegemon empire. Furthermore, we offer sanctuary to all human refugees and will provide military escort to any species willing to do the same. The age of rule by fear ends today. One by one, other species joined the Luminari. The wise ones. The Vextel. Even some of the hegemon's former allies began to distance themselves. Supreme Commander Vexor, standing on his flagship above a burning Earth, realized he'd made a catastrophic mistake. He'd wanted to eliminate a threat. Instead, he'd created martyrs. And martyrs changed history. Part 7. The New Order, 800 words. Admiral Sarah Chin was not dead. She transferred her flag to a stealth ship hours before the battle began, leading the hegemon to believe she'd perished with the Indomitable. Now she watched from the shadows as the galaxy turned against her enemy. The Hegemon fleet is withdrawing from Earth, reported Captain Webb from the sensor station. They're taking heavy political fire from the Council. Supreme Commander Vexer is being recalled to face tribunal. What's the damage to Earth? Sarah asked quietly. Significant. 30% of the orbital infrastructure destroyed. Casualties in the hundreds of thousands. But the planet survives, Admiral. Earth survives. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of those losses. Every number was a person, a family, a life cut short because humanity had dared to be free. And our colonies? All 15 are secure. 2 million civilians successfully evacuated and distributed. The Luminari are providing protection as promised. Several other species have offered aid. Good. Sarah opened her eyes and they burned with cold fire. Then it's time for Phase 3. Across the galaxy, the human diaspora activated. The 2 million refugees weren't just survivors, they were specialists. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, diplomats. Each one chosen for their skills, each one placed strategically among allied species. They shared human technology freely. The redundant system designs that made human ships so difficult to kill. The adaptability protocols that let them function in any environment. The tactical innovations born from being perpetually outmatched. But they offered something more valuable than technology: perspective. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now on the Luminari homeworld, spoke to crowds of energy beings. We were caged because you feared what we might become. But fear of potential is how tyrants justify control. Judge us by our actions, not your assumptions. Captain Rodriguez, recovered from his death, and living among the wise ones, taught their younglings about human philosophy. We call it the human spirit. It's not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about refusing to quit even when quitting makes sense. It's about finding a way forward when every path seems blocked. Every human carries this spirit. And it's not exclusive to humans, any species can learn it. Marcus Webb, working with the Vextal, helped them redesign their hive ships. You build for efficiency, which is good. But you don't build for survival against the unexpected. Let me show you how humans think about redundancy. Within 2 years, the galactic political landscape had transformed. The Hegemon Empire, facing universal condemnation and economic sanctions, fragmented. Systems that had been conquered centuries ago saw their chance and declared independence. The empire that had ruled for 800 years collapsed in less than a decade. The Galactic Union itself restructured. The old council, dominated by ancient powers, was dissolved. A new council formed, one that included humanity and gave voice to younger species that had been ignored before. Ambassador Sarah Chin, retired from military service, stood before this new council on its opening day. The chamber was different now. More species, more voices, more perspectives. 5 years ago, she began, I told this council that we wanted the right to be judged by our actions. Today I stand before you not as a prisoner or a refugee but as an equal. We have earned this place through sacrifice, through determination, and through proving that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our technology, it's our refusal to accept that freedom is something others can grant or deny. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of species. But we also learned something else. We are not special. Every species here has this same potential. Every species deserves the chance to reach for the stars without someone deciding their fate before they've taken their first step. The old galactic order was built on fear and control. This new order must be built on something better: trust. Elder Shermora, now head of the new council, nodded slowly. Humans have taught us much in 5 short years. Perhaps most importantly, you've taught us that the species we fear are often the ones we've given the most reason to fight. The cage we built around your world was meant to protect the galaxy. Instead, it nearly destroyed the peace we'd maintained for millennia. What now? Asked Lyra. The galaxy is in flux. Old powers are falling. New alliances are forming. Where do we go from here? Sarah smiled. We explore. We learn. We grow. Together. The galaxy has 400 billion stars, and we've barely visited a fraction of them. Instead of building cages, let's build bridges. Instead of asking who do we fear, let's ask, who can we learn from? And if aggressive species threaten the peace? Asked a Vextal representative. Then we face them together, Sarah replied. Not with cages built in secret, but with the combined strength of species who chose to stand together. That's the difference between control and cooperation. The vote was unanimous. The new Galactic Union, with humanity as a founding member, began its work. Years later, historians would mark this moment as the turning point. The moment when the galaxy stopped looking backward at what might go wrong and started looking forward at what might go right. On Earth, now rebuilt and thriving, Sarah Chin stood in her garden, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, human ships explored alongside Luminari, Vextal, and dozens of other species. The cage was gone. The stars were open. And humanity, the species that had been deemed too dangerous for freedom, had become the bridge that brought the galaxy together. A message chimed on her communicator. It was from Marcus, now commanding the joint human-alien deep space exploration fleet. Admiral, we found something. Ruins. Ancient. They predate every species in the Union. We need your expertise. Sarah smiled. Even in retirement, the galaxy had mysteries to solve. On my way, she replied. As she walked back to her house to pack, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. The cage. The war. The sacrifice. The triumph. Humanity had been tested by the galaxy and had passed not through conquest, but through resilience. They'd shown that being underestimated was an advantage, that adaptation was superior to raw power, and that the species that survives is not the strongest or the smartest, but the one that refuses to give up. The galaxy had demanded humanity's surrender. Humanity's response had shattered the old order and built something better in its place. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, new adventures waited. The story of humanity among the stars had only just begun.